Hey, everybody. Before we get into the episode, we want to remind you that our sponsor, NHL Sense Arena, which really is the next generation of off-ice hockey training, is offering $50 off an annual plan by using the code HockeyNeverStops at hockey.sensearena.com. We know hockey is really expensive. That's why we love NHL Sense Arena, because it allows you to bring that on-ice experience home into a virtual reality headset via the Meta Quest for less than $1 a day. And it is so immersive, you will feel like you are on the ice, whether you're a goalie or a skater or both. Again, you save $50 off on an annual plan by using the code HockeyNeverStops at checkout. Visit hockey.sensearena.com. Hockey never stops. Hockey never stops. Hockey never stops. And with that said, hockey does not stop. Let's get into this episode of the show right now. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome back to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. You know, when you're listening to this, we're most likely in the season. Your kid's probably playing hockey because a lot of people play hockey year-round. Today's topic is going to be one you like. Tips to not go crazy during the season. Now, what do I mean by that? Mike and I are privileged to watch a lot of hockey games from the bench, from the stands, as fans.
Me again?
Yeah, that sometimes. And what I realized is that just kind of watching parents, Mike, there's a lot of anxiety, I think, sometimes in the crowd. And we want to go over some things that you can do as parents when you're watching your kids, just to kind of level off some of the anxiety. Some of you might be saying, oh, I don't have a lot of anxiety. Maybe you don't, but those around you may, and I want to help you. And this could be everything from the goalie mom that is jumping up with each shot on net to you, watching your own kid. And I think that's where I want to start, Mike. One of the things you have to remind yourself as a hockey parent is that when you're watching the game, I know you're watching, quote unquote, the game, but when your kid's on the ice, most parents watch just their kid. All right. So my first tip is to just be aware of that. And remember that we want to watch our kids, we want to support our kids just because you love your kid, right? But it ends up creating a little bit of being hypercritical with our kids, or you can say, do this, do that, go get that. My advice is not to do that. Let them play. One of the things that I don't like to see, and this is one of those things you can inadvertently create for your love for your kid, is does your kid look up at you when they make a mistake? That's not a good sign. All right. You want your kid to look at you for reassurance. When they make a mistake, you actually want them to go back to the bench to their coach and discuss that mistake. They don't want to be looking at the crowd. Right. So, Mike, I'm going to throw it to you here, but that's my first tip, is to be aware that you are most likely only watching your kid when they're out there for a shift.
Yeah, on both sides, right? If you're a coach getting approached by a parent, understand the parent is probably only focused on their own kid, and just kind of like take it in where it's like, well, this, and you have to understand, like, okay, well, obviously this person is just only caring about their kid,
right?
Which is fine. It's just it's part of being a parent, I guess, right? I'm not watching when I watch my kids. I'm watching them, like, oh, what are they doing? How are they doing? Like, and now when I blame them or I see something that I don't like about their play, I think I have a good perspective of saying, well, this is a result of this, and this causes that, and that causes this. But other parents that I work with don't care or understand that. Like they see a goal got scored, and it's, well, that guy let that player come out of the corner and they got scored on. That kid stinks. And that's not my kid's problem. Well, your forecheck in the beginning allowed that player to move and did this and then came in and then they came over the blue line and nobody back checked. And yes, the end result was that player being exposed. But the fact is, your player was a big part of that as well. And I think when we speak to parents, when we look at the big picture, it is probably the most difficult piece, right? To do that. You do it at the school when you're at the band, right?
Yeah,
You're like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. That kid's terrible. I'm like, yeah, well, your kid plays the trombone, but there's 7 trombonists. Right. Like, I don't even see his lips on the trombone, so he ain't even playing. Like, thank God, right? But it's just a matter of saying, well, it's all. And again, is it easy? There's no doubt about it. It's hard. It's the hardest thing because you really want to watch your kid,
right?
And it's hard to look at it from a bird's eye view of the whole process. But knowing all that, just you've got to find a way, because it does project on your kid that you can't start going crazy now. if it's August, September, October, November, you can't like I can't. I've gotten and this is week like we're going to be in week 3 or 4 or 5 wherever you
Yeah,
listen to this,
when we're recording this, yeah.
right? And you're in, and I can't tell you how many people are like, oh my god, I heard the team's falling apart. And would you
Yeah,
like to? You should look into this. You should look at it. I'm like, it's week 3, guys. It's
yeah,
week 2.
relax,
It's week
relax.
7. Like even me, like even nothing. There's nothing. No wheels falling off in youth hockey. You know, before
Well,
before New
yeah,
Year's.
Mike, you're actually bringing up a good point here, which is kind of one of my other tips here, right? So just to kind of reinforce what you're saying, like again, my tip is this: just be aware if you're only watching your kid. I'm not telling you not to do it. I want to make sure the
Yeah.
audience understands that. But when you can start seeing things a little more 5-on-5 and realize that your kid is part of a 5 skater unit with a goalie and see the game that way, it can really change how you watch the game. It actually makes the game much more enjoyable, right? Like I've seen parents, like this actually freaks me out. Parents on their phones, and when their kids out, they're off their phone, and when their kids on the bench, they look back down at their phone. It's like what are you doing? Like put the phone away, man. You're at a hockey game. Enjoy the game, right? And believe me, your kid. Here's the funny part: your kid probably looks at you on the bench and goes, "Oh, they're on their phone. They're not even paying attention." But just try and see a little bit of a broader view. Now, the next point, Mike, that you were tapping into, I think is really important. This is a huge tip. You had just talked about how it's week 4 and the season's over. It's like we completely forget the developmental nature of youth hockey. This is a huge tip. One of the reasons that I'm so calm is because I'm not so much looking at the team today as the be all end all. As a coach, I'm looking at how much can I and the coaching staff progress this team over the season. So, for example, my kid had a game last weekend. They got killed by one team. There's a tournament. One of the teams killed them. I was excited because from my point of view, it's like, oh man, we can develop them to compete with that team. I'm taking that macro view of you're supposed to develop throughout the season. If you had a bad start, to me, it's somewhat of an opportunity through team building or practices to make that team better and to kind of break down the team and say, okay, what are the skill sets we need to work on? What are the drills that we need to work on? And how can we prioritize? This is something that's important too for parents and coaches. How do we prioritize what we need to work on? Now, as parents, you're probably not privy to those conversations, but coaches, we got to look at this as a 6-month process, right? If you're great in week 1 and you don't have much room for growth, I mean, that's not really you're probably a level below where you should be, right? You want to have that growth. You want to have it. So my second tip is learn how to take a macro view. We should never look at it as one game or one weekend is the whole season. And I mean that even with the championships at tournaments at the end of the season. Your season is not based on whether they win or lose the last game. Your season should be based on development. So hopefully you're in a situation where your kid is going to develop throughout the season. But you, in addition to not just watching your own kid all the time, the macro view. Where can we grow from here? How can we be better
Yeah.
from here? That is one of the reasons I appear to be so calm at a game because look, I want to win the game, and when it's a close, 2-2 game, I have a lot of fun with that. But if we lose, it's not the end of my life. It's not the end of my year. It's not the end of my anything. It's just, oh, we didn't win that game, right? That'll probably lead into a tip later of like how serious is all of this. But Mike, I'll throw it back to you for that on just taking the macro view on the season as a developmental opportunity for your kids as both a hockey player and a person.
Yeah, it's the reason I love some parents that just don't even know anything about what's going on. Like I just love the fact that they're so naive as far as what is really happening out there. Like I don't even know really what is he supposed to be doing. Or like when grandparents come to games, I love that. Like I love watching the grandparents that know nothing
They
about
get it.
hockey, just watching. Like, oh, isn't he great? Look at him over there. He's drinking
Having
his
so
water
much
bottle, and
fun. Yeah.
his uniform looks great. And wow, he wears that neck guard so well. I think it's just, I think it's so refreshing when people just want to go out and we use the comment all the time, right? Just I love to watch you play. And if
Mm.
you could get into that mentality, I just like watching you play, bud. Or like I like watching the team play. I
It
like
does a
watching the
lot for the
kids
kid,
succeed.
Mike. Does
But
a
but I
lot for the
think what
kid.
happens is like for somebody like me, it does come across as I don't care. It's because and it comes across as I'm just not competitive. I'm
Mhm.
like, well, I said, I'm pretty competitive and I do care and I do care, but I don't care about today. Like, I don't care about this one snapshot in the day.
Yeah.
And I think it's like anything else. It's like I don't know why sports puts us in a whole different frame of mind than other things that happen in life.
It's a great
Like
question.
if your kids don't eat peas at 3, you're not freaking out that they're never like you're not like, oh my God,
It's
I can't
over.
believe
It's over.
they're never going to eat vegetables. I got to find a way. And and then all of a sudden they're eating them, and we don't have a big party for it, and we don't post on Facebook that my kids eating peas now. They just do it. Like they tend to like, oh, I
Well,
like it with.
most people don't, Mike. Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe, yeah. I guess I don't. I gotta get more Facebook friends. But I think it's just to me, it's those situations where it's not that the parents that are sitting back don't care
Right.
and they're not all worked up. It's just that it doesn't really matter in the scheme of things when you look at the totality of a season.
Right.
And the totality of the season, winning the championship game at the end of the year is not the totality of the season
No,
either. Because
not at all.
I would laugh and go, "Do you guys remember when everybody wanted to hang me in September? Like you forget,
Yeah, the wheels were falling off, Mike. The wheels
like
were falling off.
you all wanted to leave. Like none of you, everybody befriended me and whatever, wouldn't talk to me. I mean, and
Now you're
now
best
you're all
friends.
everybody's like, hey, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. Look what we've done. I'm like, well, we really didn't do anything. We ended up playing a team that wasn't as good, and we won. Like I look at things differently from my perspective, but overall, it's just about the presence of mind to understand on any given weekend, on any given hour, on any given shift doesn't define who your team or your player is. And
Yeah.
and again, unless you're a goalie parent, then it does define you because you're crazy because you lose your mind.
Well,
And every
I'll talk about the
every
hockey goalie dads and
because
moms. Yeah.
everyone else again where you mentioned that nobody else is watching anybody else's kid, but you're only watching your kid. If you're a goalie parent, everyone's watching your kid.
Yeah, I
So
am a goalie parent, and like I said, I will talk about the goalie dads and moms in a minute because I've had a
right.
funny experience with that over the weekend. But Mike, to your point, I'm going to make kind of a sobering statement here, that's a little dark, but follow me here because I think this gives massive perspective. The highs and lows of your life are just moments. Like so, if you've experienced a championship, whether you're playing or your favorite pro team has won a championship, or, and follow me here, my friends, if you've lost a loved one or a pet, the moment of the win or the loss is just a moment. And some of these moments are really tough. But the thing is this, you cannot summate a season on one game any more than you can summate someone's life on the last day of their life. It would be a massive disrespect if you lost a loved one or a pet to only let the last moments of their life define them. That there's no way you can do that. So again, this is a very I just made it very serious. I apologize, but
Yeah.
parents, as the tip, the season works. There's no moment in the season that is that defining. It's
Yeah.
how you do it as a whole. Now there may be great and tough moments, all right, but that's not the whole season. And I think that's part of the tip here is you really got to put this stuff in perspective because you can get lost in a game. You can get lost in a game and a kid making a mistake or another kid making a mistake. And again, if you don't stop that thinking, it can become really dangerous. All right. I'm going to say it again as a tip for lowering your anxiety. Mike just said this, and I'm going to go into the next tip here, right? About wanting to win and being competitive. Look, I'm extremely competitive, extremely. Mike is too, but we're also pretty kind individuals. And one of the things I tell people, and I've been underestimated on this in the past, to a lot of people's detriment. Do not mistake my kindness for weakness. You can be very, very kind and very, very competitive. And I think that someone who's not kind or too serious, that does not make you more competitive than me. All right. It's a major misconception. So when you come with that rah rah, gotta win at all costs attitude, if it's delivered the wrong way, it can really be a detriment. And here's the thing: if you're a parent in the stands, I don't know if that's what the team needs. I'm being honest with you. Your kid needs what Mike said. I love watching you play hockey. I love the way you compete. I love you no matter what happens. You're creating a safe environment for your kid, but also a safe environment for yourself. All right. Again, not bragging here, but I take a lot of pride that when my son has a good or bad game, there's no difference in the car ride home of how we're going to interact. Now, usually we won't talk about the game, but I'm glad to see you, Dad. That's what I want after each game, right? Your stress levels And I'm not just talking about enjoying the game, that your stress levels can project. We have to, Mike, as coaches, we got to know that on the bench. If we get stressed out on the bench, the team's going to be stressed. There's no doubt about it. Right. So you got to mind kind of your own emotions. I think that's the tip here, Mike, is you got to be aware of, are you experiencing anxiety, anger, whatever the thought is? And then you got to kind of compartmentalize those feelings.
Yeah, we're not talking about coaches today, but the parent and how do you stay sane, I guess. And a lot of it too is if you're an influential parent, like if you're the parent, people, you know that people look up to you, and you know that people like value your opinion and value your knowledge of the game. Like if you're that parent, it's even more important not to be a psychopath. Like it's so important that you don't
Yeah.
project
Lead the way.
your frustration on the other kids and then let please I've always I say this every year to every parent and every meeting I've ever had is your personal success is our team success, but our team not having success will not allow your kid to have success. Like it's just they go hand in hand. And if you don't get that as an influential parent, the parent of the superstar, the parent of the kid that never does anything wrong, the one that's leading the team, the one that's carrying the load, you need to help have a great projection and not lose your mind because just as the coach will lose his team and lose the respect of officials and lose the respect of the other bench, your attitude on the other side of the glass will diminish how well your team can be and perform and the blame game that starts and you can really really influence what's that saying like what with great power comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You are that parent. If you're going to be losing your mind and showing outwardly how upset you are at a situation of somebody else's kid playing, you're hurting your own kid. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, how about a great example of that? I have seen parents that have hand signals with their kids. Okay.
Right.
And here's the deal. A lot of the time, the attitude with that is, oh, no, no, this is just like a work hard thing, a get going kind of thing. It's not, I'm not trying to hurt the team. I'm not telling them what tactics to play. Most likely you're hurting the team. And I'll tell you why, because what you're doing is trumping the coaching staff, and your kid's going to be looking to you and only you for instruction, or your instruction will trump the coach's instruction. Now, look, I'm not talking about the moment you have with your kid where you kind of do the wheel signal, hey, like let's get going, let's get going. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about parents telling their kids specifically what to do on the ice, right? When their kids are playing. Not good. All right. It's not good. I mean, we saw stories years ago of parents
Mhm.
doing that. And it's, oh, they have this great sign language. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, what's the coach going to do? You can't do anything. Right. And then, you get people talking. But like you said, Mike, it is a collaborative effort. The parents that are watching the veterans, you need to lead the way. Here's a funny way of looking at this. Most of you have a professional team out there that you watch, whatever sport you think of. You're most likely not watching one player on every snap, every shift, every at bat, right? You're watching the whole game. And I think that it's like, again, when you have your kid out there, yeah, a little different. I do get that. Try and bring that mentality. Enjoy the game. Look at the whole ice. Try and enjoy the game. If you're only focused on one thing, if you look, here's the other thing, Mike. Sorry, I'm going all over the place. If you hyper focus on your kid, you're going to find 100 mistakes a game because the whole game is built on capitalizing on other people's mistakes, right? When I watch kids or I'm scouting kids, I'm not looking for every mistake. I'm looking, are they making the same mistake over and over and over and over again? And then at the end of the game, I'll usually have a one or two notes of these are the two things I want you to work on. That's called coaching. All right. If
Yeah.
you go to your kid, you did this, and then in the second period, you did this, and the third period, you did this, and this is a good thing. You did this thing. That was great. That goal was great. But then you did this, and you did this. Not helping. And again, if you're watching, we're talking about tips to lower your anxiety. If you're watching the game that way, you're going to create anxiety. You're going to make mistakes in a hockey game. The other thing you're creating for your kid and for yourself is you're creating a fear of failure. In the locker room this past weekend, we have a really impressionable team. The kids really listen to the coaches. It's really great. But one of the things I had to say to them was, I don't want you playing afraid to make a mistake. A lot of you are playing and you're making bad decisions because you're doing exactly what you think we want you to do. Right. And it's like, you got to be a little creative. It's okay for you to mess up. We'll coach you. We'll coach you up. As a parent,
Right.
if you only tell them what they're doing wrong, they're going to be terrified to make mistakes. And again,
Well,
thus raising your anxiety and theirs, and it's a cyclical pattern.
but that's the art of coaching, right? Knowing that you can let the kids have the leeway to make mistakes and then not reacting to those mistakes.
Right.
Like it's a fine line because you got to be willing to lose. You got the transition from 8U to 10U hockey, right? That's the offsides conundrum. Like
Yes.
you got to be
Paradox.
you got to be willing to allow 5 or 6 offsides to happen.
Yeah.
Without punishing the kid because they will learn. You have to allow for a player to make a mistake and have some gray area in what you're asking for, and then allow them to explore making that change. Now, at some point, you got to pull the plug on that. Is this just that's just the way it is? I mean, at some point, you got to say, okay, you're just not getting it. Like we've got to reset here and we got to reevaluate this.
Absolutely.
But if you're gonna tell players to trust you and that you want to make mistakes and we want you to play fearless, then you've got to present a fearless coaching staff and allow that. And if you're a parent that says, I just want you to go have fun out there, and then you don't allow the player to have fun because
just
all
enjoy
of the
it. Just have
pieces.
fun.
But you're embarrassing me by having fun. Like your fun is embarrassing me
Well,
because
it's you can't be a hypocrite with it.
yeah, you can't be the goalie parent that allows the kid to do the breakdancing between whistles right during the music and then say you got to get more serious. But I want you to have fun. Like
Well,
I
that's a
want you to
good
be fun,
story
but
I have for you.
you got to be serious and you got to be in tune. Like I'm like, well, I am in tune. Like I'm having fun and I'm definitely in tuned. So it's just there's the weight. And again, I guess on this point, don't you as parent A, you can't look at parent B and say they're doing what they're doing with their kid wrong because you don't know the relationship with their kid.
Yeah, never
And they
judge.
might have a very laughing, funny, laissez-faire fair attitude,
You got it. Laissez-faire.
but they're serious. Like there's how many pro player parents have we had on that were the funnest people you've ever
They
met,
really
right?
are great people.
In the last 3 years, we've had like just they're like off the air, they're even funnier.
Yeah.
But guess what? They are ultra competitive. They are cutthroat competitive, but they find a way to make sure there's joy and fun and all this other stuff going on in the same atmospheres, but we expect greatness. We expect competition. You can do both. But don't judge another parent down the other end of the bleachers by what they're doing, unless they're doing the hand signals and the
Mike,
airplane.
look, I'll give you one too. Like as a competitor, this is one for all the parents. Like, and I'll tell you what, this applies. This is a good tip here too. When I was younger, I have to be ultra serious and ultra angry at my opponent, and I got to be all these things to compete. And as I got older, I switched that anger, and this really, really worked. I mean, I would say I'm even more competitive now. I switched the anger to gratitude. I'm thankful to have an opponent. I'm thankful to be on the ice. I'm thankful for the opportunity to compete. It did not make me any less competitive. It made me more competitive. And I think as parents, look, if your kid's playing youth hockey, you've had some level of success or you're struggling really hard and you're making it work. Have the gratitude for that situation. Any day you get on the ice is a great day. I firmly believe that. Every time I go to a practice or get off the ice at a practice in a game, anything, I'm thankful for the opportunity to be around the game that I love. We don't bring that enough to the rink. At least not outwardly. I don't see it as much as I'd like to see it. The other thing too, Mike, and again, you keep bringing up some really good points here, is that you got to let your kid have fun. There's a time and a place, right? Like we just had a conversation with a young man. We were losing a game. He scored. He did a huge celebration. We said, yeah, it's not the right time to do the bow and arrow thing when you're down by 4 goals, right? That's not correct. But when we're up, you can do that, or when it's close. Adversely, you would not do that when you're up by 4 or 5 goals. It's incorrect. Look, I'll get a switch one because we only have a few minutes left. Got to talk about the goalies, right? I'm a goalie dad. My wife is a goalie mom, and my son is a pretty fun kid to watch. So follow me here. He does the moonwalk to the net at the start of each period, and it's actually pretty good. He puts his head down. Looks like he's holding his hat. He likes to dance sometimes. Keep in mind he's 10. Between shifts, he's having a good time, and I've seen him over the last year really click into, okay, the puck's dropped. I got to be serious now. He's figured out the right time and the wrong time to do this. I don't want to tell him, hey, don't do that. Be serious. right? And I don't want the parents telling me that tell him to be more serious. That's what he needs to compete right now. And I'm not going to get in his way of that. Now, with that said, and I got to preface this. I talked to my wife this morning about this, and she said this is okay. My wife is struggling a bit because every time there is a shot or anything comes close to the net, you see her tense up, like she just, it's out there, it's free, it pucks up. Like she freaks out. Admittedly, she says this.
Yeah.
And she turned to me last game. She's like, "How are you so calm? How are you so calm with this?" And I said, "Because the puck's going to go in the net, right? He's going to get scored on. He's going to have situations where he doesn't make the save. And you might want to chalk that up to my 30 plus experiences of playing, but I'm also not judging the success. And I'm not saying that she is on how many saves or how many goals go in the net. I just know that's an outcome of the game. And the thing is, this is not just goalie logic. Every kid on the ice is going to make mistakes. Every kid on the ice is going to make good decisions and bad decisions. And like I said, we talked about the macro of the game and the tip of the game. The puck's going to go in the net. And what I look at is not the puck, and this is a goalie mentality too. We've had a lot of goalies on. It's not so much, oh, it's in the net where it's the end of the world. It's okay, it went in. What can we improve on there? What happened there? What can we learn from there? And the thing is having that mentality, Mike. And again, I'm not trying to pat myself on the shoulder. I was taught this from other goalies. Having that mentality of not it being in the net is the end of the world, but let's learn from this every time. He's picked up on that. And I've said it, we have this kind of 10-second rule of 3 seconds to feel whatever you want to feel. Whatever you want to feel, 3 seconds to kind of analyze what happened, 3 seconds to get your mindset, and then on second 10, the puck drops again, or you're back in set. And it's fascinating to watch him do it because you can see him doing it, right? There's no judgment there. Again, I was taught that. I'm not projecting this to our audience like this is my idea, but it's a tip. How you respond to what happens to you is infinitely more important than what happens to you. So one of the great stress relievers for me, Mike, is to have that mentality really with every kid. It's not just my kid, right? Of, okay, that's something that happens in hockey. How are we going to respond from that? How are we going to learn from that? Man, does that lower the anxiety? Okay. There's also, look, kind of getting into the final tip too. I'll let you talk about this too. Like ego plays into this as well. All right. It's not abnormal for parents to be worried about what other parents are thinking. It happens, right? Or if your kid slashes a kid across the arm, you get embarrassed, right? But I think you also got to remember, and this is part of that tip, right? Hey, man, we're all in this together. All right. We're a hockey family throughout the season. You're all yelling at your kids as much as the other families are. You're all having problems at bedtime. You're all having problems getting the screens away from your kid. You all deal with school. You're all dealing with the same crap. I almost said another word there. I didn't want to censor ourselves today. Okay. And I think that the older you get, the more you realize, no, hey, Johnny, it's having a bad day today. We've been through this. Most likely, no one's judging you too much. All right. Just remember that you're a hockey collective. You're a family. You all go through this crap together. All right. And you can learn together too. So again, Mike, I'm going to give you some time here too. Just the tips so far. Obviously, remember, be a little more in touch with your emotions and make sure that you're in touch with, am I only watching my kid? The next tip is to take a macro view of the season. Okay. You can enjoy a game while having a macro view of the season. It's not the end of the world. Some parents are way better than that than others, but you got to remember that if you're having a lot of anxiety. All right. Tip 3 is to make sure you remember that the development is important. That's a little bit along the lines of the macro, but how you respond and how you learn, that's the lesson you want to be teaching your kid. Remember, above all, hockey is a vehicle for your kid's growth as a human being. That is the ROI on the game. You're learning life lessons that will apply to life. Doesn't matter if you are an NHL Stanley Cup champion Hall of Famer or if you never play past high school, the lessons you're learning are going to apply to your life in some way. You got to remember that little fact in your head if you want to lower anxiety. Mike, I'm tossing it to you. We have 3 minutes. Go for Mike.
Yeah, no, this is the reason why we have our kids play hockey. It's to allow
That's
all
true.
of us to learn as a community and to have a bond. The bond is we don't talk about golf really today and football. We're talking about hockey players and ice cold rinks and long nights and
Long drives.
and kids with crazy coaches and crazy teammates and crazy parents and embracing that craziness and understanding that it's all just part of what we're all doing all the time. And I think the input from this audience, the output from us, the ability for us to have a platform to discuss these things, and sometimes like this is in real time, right? You're talking and I'm going, oh my God, like I just did that. Like I gotta really change what the heck I'm doing. Or
We
that
all
that
learn
is
from
a
the show.
reminder to me. And I'm hoping that, the feedback I get is when people listen to us, they say, wow, that was a great point, or oh, that was a bunch of BS, or hey, that's something that I need to think about. And I think
Yeah.
I can now
Yeah.
approach another parent with, because all of us are in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're all in the same rinks every single weekend. And I swear to God, we could put together like just a note sheet for the weekend. Say, this is what I joke around with a lot of my parents that I do have a crystal ball for hockey. I am Cernak. I just know that I know what's going to happen. Tell me the scenario. Tell me
Yeah.
who you're playing. Tell me where you're playing, and I will let you know that there will be a parent getting kicked out of the game. I'll let you know that the coach will lose his mind. I'll let you know that you'll probably go through 2 or 3 goalies. I let you, just because after 35, 40 years of doing this, there are tendencies that happen, good or bad. They just do. But we can learn from each other and then embrace this chaos and say, well, how do we just make it better? And if we can't make it better for everyone, how do I just make it better for me?
Right.
And if you can do that, and you can nick away at these little things that you're not crazy. The hockey world's crazy, right?
Yeah. We
And that
said
you
you're
don't have
not
to, and you don't,
crazy.
yeah, and you don't have to lose your mind. You just have to understand that you are losing. You are going to lose your mind because you're a parent and you're watching your child, and just how you then. And I don't deal with it great either. I mean, I have many times where I'm like, oh boy, I really, really wish I had a do-over there.
Right.
But
You
now I can
learn.
go back and say, okay, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong as a coach there? Why did I talk to that player the way I talked to them? And how can I make sure I don't do that again to the next player? And that's why we hopefully that's why we all play sport.
Yeah, look, you live and you learn. We've all heard that, and Mike, I think one of my favorite things that we hear from people that listen to the show is that I never thought of that before, and that's the point,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
the reason that we love this show is because of what you just said. Everything that's happened in the game has most likely been experienced by somebody, but we don't do a great job of communicating that with each other as a hockey collective, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
that we do that as an audience, as hosts. We're just sharing what we've learned. I the most, and you and Christy know this. I have benefited from this show the most because I have the youngest kids. And I've learned so much from you and Christy about what to do, what not to do. And you talk about a crystal ball. You have told me you're going to experience this situation and this is what it's going to feel like. And then it happens. And I'm like, man, I was prepared for this. Even though I still feel that anxiety sometimes, I was
Right.
prepared because Mike
Right.
told me this was going to happen. All right. I remember I'm not going to tell now that my kid's first shift, I was not prepared for what happened there, but I kind of was because I was like, oh my God, it's happening to me. But that's why we do it. Did we miss anything? You have other tips that we didn't talk about? Email us, team at
Well,
ourkidsplayhockey.com. Remember, I said it before, this is a collective. While we do appreciate having that expert title for you as an audience, it gets better when everybody chimes in. So make sure you share your tips and the things that you want to do either, again, at team at ourkidsplayhockey.com or on our Facebook group, Our Kids Play Hockey. And also accompanying all episodes now, Mike, I don't even know if you know about this, there will be a link that you can click and actually text us questions, comments, anything you want to kind of get involved in the episodes. But this was a good one, man. Again, tips to not go crazy this season. I think I need to end it, Mike, on what you said a minute ago. You're not crazy. The hockey world is crazy, but we're all crazy together in this hockey collective called Our Kids Play Hockey. Oh, that was just beautiful. You can put a little bow on top of that one. Okay, that's going to do it, my friends. Have a great week. Have a good time at hockey. Remember to always skate on. We'll see you in the next Our Kids Play Hockey. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.